Thank you, Nabil, and good morning. A very warm welcome to all of you. I started working my career in 1981, so it's like, I think, almost 40 years since I've been working, and probably coming towards the end of that career now. So, during COVID, you talked about what all happened during COVID. I must compliment you, the media. I must compliment the entire country. I ask many people, which country has done better than India during COVID? Whether it was health-wise, whether it was giving vaccines free to poor countries, whether it was even keeping the economy running at a reasonable level within the country, logistics running. And I think we have done better than, if you really look at it very impartially, we've done pretty well. Even now, after COVID, we have not printed so much money and we are still in a much better shape economically. The challenge is ahead, but I think we are in a much better shape. And we can see that with the kind of orders that are coming in to the auto industry, the high level of orders. So compliments to everyone. I think the whole country, all of you, the whole auto industry also worked really well through COVID. And that's why we are here today for this summit. Thank you for inviting me. Currently, with a GDP of $3.2 trillion, India is the world's sixth largest economy and the third largest by purchasing power parity at $10.2 trillion. Yet our manufacturing only accounts for 17% of the GDP and represents only 3% of the world's manufacturing output. In comparison, most industrialized nations, the manufacturing contribution to GDP ranges between 25 to 30%. Clearly, we are really not doing well in manufacturing on a global scale. We are nobody in a global scale. While India's manufacturing has shown some improvements over the past years, undoubtedly, there are considerable elements that can contribute to India's limited manufacturing competitiveness. Some of these can be attributed to low investments in R&D, slower pace of innovation and design, higher transaction costs, and low ability to scale up. The automotive industry is one of the most significant part of India's manufacturing sector, contributing around 35% of the manufacturing GDP. It's a rare success story, having achieved global scale and high level of competitiveness. As India sets itself an ambitious target of becoming a $5 trillion economy by 2025, the manufacturing sector is targeted by the government to contribute 1 trillion or 20% to the national GDP. This clearly entails that the Indian automotive sector should continue to grow at a rapid pace from its current level of about $100 billion turnover. However, despite good achievements, the Indian automotive industry too continues to be highly import dependent. As per a recent SIAM-ACMA study, the value of Indian industry imports is around rupees 1.83 trillion, with almost one-third of this coming from China. This is approximately 23% of its sales turnover, with import by OEM suppliers being at about 30%. Drive, transmission, steering, engines, electricals, and electronics account for drive, transmissions, and steering. Engine, electricals, and electronics accounts for roughly 22%, 16%, 13%, and 11% respectively. Hence, these four categories together account for almost totally two-thirds of the total imports. At such a high level of import dependence for key components, it is not a desirable situation, and it also poses serious supply chain vulnerabilities. These have been evident during the recent disruptions caused first by the COVID pandemic and now with the ongoing geopolitical issues. Hence, while we must think in terms of becoming self-reliant, in my opinion, we must go beyond creating local manufacturing to set up a dynamic and competitive local design and R&D ecosystem. This is essential given the fact that with fast-paced technological shifts, the very nature of the industry is fast transforming. Be it technology features, the safety, the comfort, the emissions, as well as the source of energy. In order for us to think about designing an R&D in India, we must first overcome the obvious existing gaps, and seek to make more in India in order to correct the current situation. The government is very keen to support industry, and I have been deeply involved in industry-government discussions on the way forward. The industry had requested the government to provide incentives and suitable policy support to global and Indian manufacturers to set up manufacturing facilities in India for advanced automotive technologies, including electronics, semiconductor, and advanced cell manufacturing. The government, on its part, has been extremely supportive. PLI schemes covering 14 significant sectors involving a total outlay of rupees almost 2 lakh crores have been launched. The PLI scheme for the automotive sector, along with the advanced chemistry cell, electronics and semiconductors, will facilitate development of a quality-driven, robust supply chain for advanced automotive technology parts and components that can help us cater not just the Indian market, but the overseas markets as well. The PLI scheme, along with the benefits also being accorded by most state governments, will certainly be able to compensate for the earlier inherent disabilities faced for manufacturing in India due to high transaction and other costs. The government has delivered on its part by providing the right policy support for the industry to rapidly grow, and the industry too has come forward to provide an overwhelming response to these schemes. Hence, I believe these developments will revolutionize the auto sector and usher in a dawn of a new era for the Indian automotive industry. An era that would set the ball rolling for the next few decades of the auto industry with large investments, high-end and advanced value-add, technology development and advancement, and availability of greener and cleaner vehicle technologies. To ensure that India is able to fully benefit from these developments and also remain on the cusp of innovation, we must continuously work to upgrade our workforce on the latest skills and update the curriculum of our engineering colleges so that these remain relevant in wake of the fast-paced technological changes which are taking place. Further, to catapult the industry to a new level, a discernible shift is also taking place with several auto companies leveraging their capabilities to set up design and technology centers for the world in India, leading towards the realization of Atmanirbhar Bharat in a true sense. It is commendable that more and more Indian companies in various sectors ranging from IT and telecom, pharmaceuticals and biotech, electronics, and the auto industry are now taking up ambitious R&D projects aiming to realize both skill and cost competitiveness. However, more thrust in many areas is needed. One such critical example that is very relevant for automotive manufacturing is, of course, battery manufacturing. With a rapid shift towards electrification, global leadership will be with nations and companies that are able to stay ahead of the curve in respect of the most valuable system in an electrified vehicle, that is the energy storage system. Hence, we need to go beyond local manufacturing of lithium-ion cells and its components and explore newer cell chemistries as well as other options like hydrogen. Globally, research is on in many new battery chemistries that could be cheaper, have higher energy densities, and are able to charge rapidly with better thermal management. So far, it would appear that not much is being done in India, but we do have excellent CSIR and DRDO labs, exceptional scientists and an engineering pool, as well as some of the best academic and engineering institutions. What is missing is a system that can bring these stakeholders together on a common platform with industry. In this context, industry must take the lead and with the help of the government can create nationally important R&D programs that bring together these stakeholders. These can be designed on existing successful global models available in many countries like Germany and Korea. Believe me, such platforms are very much possible and can be very successful, as we have already seen in some sectors in India like defense. Another idea that can be explored is the creation of government-enabled industry consortiums or SPVs for key advanced technologies. These consortiums could source the best global talents and bring in global technologies to hasten local design and R&D ecosystem. This in turn can boost our next phase of growth. It is applauding to note that the Government of India's tremendous efforts to boost local manufacturing in key sectors, including the auto sector with multifold incentives. However, we auto players have a much bigger role to play by owning the responsibility towards building cleaner and safer mobility. This is highly valued globally. We will have to take the lead in this direction. Indian auto industry, being a powerful sector, must gear up and act responsibly and collaboratively towards making India a strong player in the automotive space, thereby translating the visionary milestones into reality. With this, I'd like to close my talk and once again take this opportunity to welcome all the various eminent speakers and industry leaders from different areas who are present with us to share their experiences, give ideas on innovation, and deliberate much deeper on the various aspects of the automotive industry and sustainable mobility. Thank you very much.
Since Mr. Kirloskar is here, and we know that Kirloskar Group and Toyota Kirloskar has been pioneer in R&D on many aspects, so it would not be right to let you go before having some questions from the audience and also mine. First question, I saw myself the first. Sir, we have seen design in India being a challenge for a long time. When you started off, Kirloskar Group is, I must say, this one of the companies that has always been dealing with machines and all, where R&D, design and all plays a very important role. How tough or easy it has been for you to find good engineers or carry out engineering and design and R&D kind projects in India?
Since I started my career after college, I think the first 20 years of my career, I was totally involved in design. I developed a lot of products. I've been involved in R&D at all kinds of levels, right from material development to machinery development. On base R&D in the automotive industry, we are not, frankly speaking, our company, we are not doing much. Most of the R&D we are doing is in process engineering to improve our manufacturing, to become more competitive in manufacturing. We have localized most of the machinery we use, and there's a lot of R&D involved in that. We're doing a lot of R&D in energy reduction, in the processes. On automotive design, bulk of the R&D we are doing is related to specializing parts for the local market. And the reason for that is very simple. Platforms, automotive platforms in our industry is based on like a platform, and it tends to be sold all over the world. And it's difficult to have many centers for designing a platform. That's one of the issues we have. And until we build up scale in India, and we get to large volume, to do serious design activity is going to be difficult. I think it is important to do the innovations to improve our competitiveness as we go along, but we have to build up the scale.
We used to sell almost 27 million, motorized vehicles in India, including 21 million two-wheeler at the peak
I'm
time.
talking more on the four-wheeler.
Four-wheeler has been 3.4 million.
It's still
and we are the fourth
small.
largest. Do you think the way we are the market size, are we doing enough of R&D? You also mentioned that the spent on our R&D is very less. It's about 1% or even less.
There is a lot of spend, I think, on the, like I said, on the process improvement and on process development. I think in a lot of the component companies are coming up, the auto component suppliers with significant R&D as we have reached BS4 and BS6 emission, and as we reach the new safety norms, I think you'll see a lot more effect of the R&D the auto component companies are doing. We will progress as the volumes go up.
In ICE era, we were followers. But now with the new mobility coming up, that is completely transforming, which may give India a level playing field, and India can achieve those kind of efficiency in product R&D also?
On electrification, I think we certainly have a chance to be a low-cost producer. There are a couple of issues I feel we have to figure out in electrification. One is the rare earth magnets, the permanent magnets in motors, which are cornered by the Chinese completely, the whole global market. There's some issues on electrical steel, which I think the steel companies are working on. And of course, the issue is the battery. Lithium, source of lithium, how do we work on that? So I think we have to look at all alternate possibilities in India. If I look at what are India's long-term objectives and related to the automotive, one is obviously reduction of imports and make in India, as well as climate change issues. So that is reduction of carbon. And I think using these two as the basic sort of visionary thrust issues, don't be dependent on a particular country for either the raw material or the fuel, as well as reduce carbon. I think each of us have to innovate and come up with ideas which best work for themselves.
We have been focusing on manufacturing. We call ourselves one of the largest market for small cars or manufacturers of small cars, but there are hardly products that has been developed locally. Why do you see that we have been left behind when we talk about design in India? Make in India, we are doing surely much better. Why are we not able to catch up the pace there in design in India? How can we do that?
I think in the small cars, there has been a lot of progress. I think a lot of the small cars which have been produced in India, a large part of the development has been done in India. And I know in our company also, whatever in the future we are coming out in the small cars, we are working with Maruti and Suzuki on that. A lot of the work is going on in India. And I think as the volumes increase, it will progress.
I've seen the country's largest car maker has hardly 2 products which was completely locally designed.
Yeah.
All others have come from their parent company. So with this, I'll open the floor for question from you. In this forum, we try to give a larger time share to the audience so that they can directly interact with the stalwarts of the industry whom they do not get much often the time to interact. So first question from here, please. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Udit Bagga. We are dealers for Maruti, Bajaj, Hyundai from Delhi. Udit Bagga. We are dealers for Maruti, Bajaj and Hyundai. So I want to like India has been a manufacturing hub for Hyundai, Maruti, Nissan, and they're exporting a lot of cars. So, but I see the share of exports of Toyota from India has been negligible. So, and since India is a much cheaper labor and a lot of competitive advantages we have in India, so aren't you thinking to make it an export hub also?
I'll tell you the issue with Toyota on the export side. But Toyota has a plant in almost every country in the world. So if you want to export anywhere, you want to export to South America, there's a factory in every South American country. You want to go export to Asia, there's a factory in most of Asia. Export to Africa, there are factories in Africa. Same situation in Europe. We tend to export more of engines and gearboxes. We are becoming more a center of transmission exports. We do have some export of cars, but I don't really see that becoming very large in the future because it's the same situation. You go to South Africa, the guy will say, why do you want to import cars? Make them here. And they have plants all over the place.
Again, what do you see as the future for EV in
Very
India?
good.
Hi, first I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kapil Telan. I represent Lubrizol, who are the technology leaders in lubricant technology. So the question we have is, how do you see the automotive industry transitioning in India? Do you see it directly jumping to electrification, or do you see, considering the way we are, a phase-wise transition starting from a gasoline or diesel ICE, going on to CNG, then moving to hybrid, and then finally to electrification?
It's going to be really, I think, market-driven and how competitive the vehicles are going to be, okay, and each one's requirements. I'd love to have it go to EV as fast as possible, but I keep looking at the power situation in the country. If I look at Bangalore, where I live, bulk of the apartments, and it's a huge IT industry, highly paid people who can afford these cars. They live in an apartment where the connected load to the apartment would be 3.7 to 5 kilowatts. So to think of charging a car with that kind of a connected load in your house is very, very difficult. It's fine if it's a low number. So we have to get, I think the ecosystem on the power distribution and clean power availability has to grow equally fast to make EVs grow fast. So I think that's a challenge. And in the meantime, I think there are a lot of innovative ideas on Mr. Gadkari is pushing ethanol. The Brazilians are pushing ethanol in Brazil, and they claim with the absorption of carbon in sugarcane, and they've shown studies in sugarcane and whatever they use to produce ethanol, in the entire cycle in Brazil, they find an ethanol vehicle far lower in total carbon content than an EV. So I think each country will have to look at ourselves, look at our imports, look at our long-term sustainability on energy, and figure out what is best for us. But I think the market is going to determine on what gets competitive faster and the ecosystem on power availability.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. This is Namaste and good morning. This is Saurabh Saxena and from industry. Can you hear me? Yeah, this is Saurabh Saxena from the industry now as a startup working in the field of hydrogen. And my question to you, sir, is that recently Nitin Gadkari ji drove Amirai, which is a future fuel hydrogen. And being an industry veteran, then becoming a startup in terms of hydrogen, and we talked about design in India, produce in India, and use in India. So recently, Indian Oil has tied with me. So in terms of industry, startups, and the tier one in the auto ecosystems, how can we work together? Because standalone, it cannot be done. Alternate fuel has to come in step by step. And so what are your views that how the industry, the OEMs, the startups per se, coming from that angle, and the big companies can come together to get some roadmap, technology roadmap for India?
See, hydrogen has a large potential. I think not so much for the auto industry. It has something for the auto industry, but overall for getting meeting carbon targets of India. Okay, and if you look at the potential use of hydrogen, especially in clean green steel, green power, gas turbines running on hydrogen, and so many other sources, fertilizer plants, there's a big potential. But there are a lot of challenges also along with it. How do you generate the hydrogen? How do you make sure it's green hydrogen? Or if you do it from gas, for example, how will you hold on to the carbon and not let it get in the atmosphere? So I think there are a lot of challenges. Regarding use of car, for a car, the big challenge is how do you compress the hydrogen? It's expensive technology. It is a tough technology. Indian Oil is trying to set up and I think they will set up a pump in Faridabad with compressed hydrogen. It's a lot of technology there. The company called Ohiam in near Bangalore, which is trying to make small, different size of electrolyzers for producing hydrogen. I think the smallest they're talking of is a 200 kilowatt electrolyzer. So I think what would be good for the car industry, I think, if the fertilizer, the steel plants, the power plants, and all these other large users start using hydrogen, and that's where the big consumption is. They seriously start looking at that for their carbon reduction goals. That will increase the volume of hydrogen production and hopefully bring the price of hydrogen down to make it, as a potential fuel for vehicles or trains or buses or whatever, and trucks, where it looks very viable in the future.
Thank you.
Backbenchers are always, noticeable from the podium. So maybe that's why he noticed. I am Mohammed Zulfikar. I represent Mahindra and Mahindra here. My question to you is basically what are your views in terms of the non-traditional players entering, the car market, especially the EV space? Do you see that as a disruption, as an opportunity, threat? What should be the OEM strategy?
No, I think they have done very well. If you look at Tesla, you look at many of the two-wheeler companies, Rivian or whatever, all of them have done, I think, very well. They have set a challenge for the traditional car makers. You know, we always thought that no one else can make cars. It's not correct. There are other people who can make cars, and they've been able to make from scratch. Two-wheelers, they've been able to set up, Ola is trying to set up such a huge factory. I think it's a big challenge. And it means that there are clever people, innovative people who can do things. And there is capital to back them as well. So I think it's a big wake-up signal for the traditional car makers. You know, get your act together and make sure you listen to the market, listen to what your country needs, what the market, what the world requires.
Understand.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for wonderful questions, and
Thank you
thank
very
you so
much.
much for being such a good audience. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kirloskar, for joining us.